Good morning, and welcome to this online service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington. Everyone is welcome here. No matter your beliefs or background, your means or abilities, your identity or heritage, you have a place here in this community. My name is Amy Kakuza. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of UUCA, and I'm so glad that you're here with us for today's service on listening to the wisdom of the earth. The last time I was here to greet you was August, still full-throated summer. That was 2 months ago, but it could have been 2 weeks. Or a year. I don't know about you, but I have found it so difficult to mark the passage of time during this strange COVID paradigm. I'd never realized how heavily I rely on seasonal markers. What is June without a Pride celebration? With no baseball all-star game, how am I supposed to know that it's July? No summer concerts in the park, no long evening walks with friends, no back-to-school shopping, just me, in front of my computer, wearing yoga pants. 2020. I've become completely untethered from the calendar. But here we are, inexplicably in October. A new month, a new season. This past week, my family packed up our bathing suits and brought down the boxes of sweaters and wool socks from the attic. Autumn and the onset of sweater weather is a very big deal for knitters. Ordinarily, my family and I would be preparing for our annual pilgrimage to the New York Sheep and Wool Festival in the Hudson Valley. Of course, in 2020, there will be no trip to the Hudson Valley. The festival, like so many other events, has gone virtual. But festival or no, the seasons will change. The leaves will begin to fall soon. Winter will arrive. Probably sooner than we would care for. 2020 will, at some point, finally end. I find the constancy of the change of seasons soothing, particularly at a time when nothing else feels normal. I suppose that honoring the seasons is my way of listening to the wisdom of the earth. Please join us after today's service for our Zoom coffee hour. You'll find the link in this morning's email or online in today's order of service. But for now, let's listen together.
Good morning. Today's call to worship is a poem called Remember by Joy Harjo. Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point in time. Remember sundown and the giving away to night. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father, he is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are, red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth, we are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them, listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind, remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember you are all people, and all people are you. Remember you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember all is in motion, is growing in you. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language is, that life is. Remember. Now please join me as we do the reading to light the chalice. We gather together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities for love. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing both light and warmth to the world.
All across the earth, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold. All across the sky, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold. Deep within my heart, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, 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 behold.
Today, I'm talking about nature and the importance of taking care of our earth. I bet this is something you've talked about before, and maybe it's something you have some good ideas about already. I think that even while we are taking care of the earth is also taking care of us. She gives us trees and air and water. She gives us food to eat and shelter and shade and sun. And we also know that our earth is hurting. You've probably heard about climate change, and I bet you've learned about the ways humans have caused harm to the earth. I bet you've learned some ways of helping the earth too, things like recycling and turning off the lights if you're not using them, and being careful to only use the water you need. I'm going to share a story with you that is based on a book called The Keeper of Wild Words by Brooke Smith. And then I have some ideas about something you might do at home. The Keeper of Wild Words. At the end of a long lane surrounded by meadows and pine trees and sky lived Brooke's grandmother. Brooke ran up to her grandmother's door. "Mimi, I'm here," she said. Mimi had been waiting. She'd been sitting at her desk all day, distracted by a hummingbird and a wasp's nest and a red-tailed hawk hovering overhead. Mimi was a writer. She wove words into everything that mattered. But today, Mimi needed Brooke's help. "I'm afraid some of my words are disappearing," she said. "Some of my wild words that I've known and loved my whole life." "But how do words disappear?" Brooke wondered. "Words disappear if we don't share them when we talk, if we don't write them in our stories, if we don't read them in our books, if we don't use words, they can be forgotten. And if they're forgotten, they disappear." "I need someone to keep them safe," she continued, "to help remember. I need you to be my keeper, the keeper of wild words." "Can I wear a crown?" Brooke asked. Mimi laughed. "No, the keeper doesn't need a crown. She just needs to keep her eyes wide open and be ready to see and hear and feel all the wild words. That way, she'll always remember them." Mimi showed Brooke her list of wild words. It said wren, acorn, dandelion, doe, blackberry, and fern. "Today," said Mimi, "we'll walk and run. We'll sit and wait. We'll listen and touch until we find every word on the list." So off they went, stepping out into the morning where all the wild words were waiting. A wren sang a good morning song, a little brown bird with a voice like an angel, sitting up high, looking down, just waiting to say hello to the world. They walked a little further and found bushes filled with blackberries, just like the ones Brooke had eaten for breakfast. Hundreds still waiting to be picked and enjoyed for dessert. Along the way, Brooke picked up an acorn that fell from a mighty oak. Big, towering oak tree, little nut with a tiny brown hat and a smooth round shell. She put it in her pocket to remember. "Make a wish," said Mimi, holding out a dandelion, fairy dust sitting on a stem. "Blow on it, and the seeds will fly your tiny wishes into the air." Finally, they wandered over to the dense, dark woods. Brooke had always been a little afraid of the forest, but now part of her was wild, and she couldn't wait. A light rain started to fall, a sudden summer shower. The rain made the smells of the forest come alive and all the plants glisten. The ferns with their magnificent green feathered leaves curled up and then spread out like a fan for everyone to notice. "What else do you see?" Mimi asked. Brooke looked across the forest floor, and sure enough, nestled in the needles was a doe, fast asleep in the shadows. The night sky would soon be painted, stars gleaming overhead, a beautiful wild curtain closing on the day. Brooke smiled, because she knew that Mimi's wild words were safe. They were shared and remembered, understood and deeply loved. When the wild wraps around you, it stays forever in your heart. One of my favorite things to do is to take walks or hikes in the woods. I like to take pictures of what I see because it helps me pay attention to the ways nature is really beautiful. The big things are beautiful, like the oak trees or sunsets, but also the tiny things like ladybugs or flowers or even drops of water on a spider web. I wonder if you could make your own list of wild words by going for a walk around your block or a hike in the woods or maybe going in your backyard to see what you can find. I would love for you to share your list of things with me, Or maybe take pictures of the things you find so you can help me be a keeper of wild words too.
In this time of civic division and national tension, I feel blessed to have found a spiritual home whose mission both comforts and challenges me. In my interactions with all of you, I am constantly reminded that all of us together create this beloved community. I am also inspired by the ongoing work of our church, the music program, the covenant groups, religious education, our social justice ministries, our pastoral care team, and many more endeavors. By giving to UUCA, I feel that I am contributing to a better world. If you feel moved to contribute to the work of our church, you can mail a check payable to UUCA with the word offering or pledge in the memo line. You can give online at the church website, uucava.org. Just click on the donate button at the top of the page. Or you can donate by text. You can donate by using the mobile app Give Plus. Just enter the zip code 22204 and choose our church, UUCA. Our offertory prayer reminds us, let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. Let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
I invite you now into a time of quiet prayer or meditation. Perhaps you close your eyes, get comfortable in your seat. Feel the places where your body is touching something solid, and breathe into those places. Perhaps you put a hand on your heart. Take a breath in and out. Listen to the rhythm of your breath, the ocean sound your breathing makes. In and out. Invite in a pause. Listen to the quiet of this moment. We come with all the weight of our worries, all the wonder of our joy, all the busyness that comes with planning and thinking and living and creating. We carry so much of the world with us. But in this moment, we can set it down. In this moment, we can be. I invite you to take a moment to allow any thoughts, any feelings you have, just to be. If you have a joy or sorrow today that you would like to share in community, I invite you to share them in the chat using the hashtag Book of Life, or send them to us by email at bookoflife@gmail.com. We know that beauty is all around us, and we know our human hearts allow us to hold both the joy and the overwhelm, the grief and the love, the anger and the loveliness. We can hold it all. At the end of the book we read, For the Time for All Ages, there is an author's note. The author, Brooke Smith, writes that the book was inspired by an article she read about the fact that the Oxford Junior Dictionary removed over 100 nature-related words because they felt the words no longer had relevance for today's children. According to Smith, these words like moss and blackberry and bluebell, were replaced by words like chat room, MP3 player, database, and cautionary tale. I keep thinking about the irony of cautionary tale being added in place of these natural words. A cautionary tale consists of 3 parts. First, something is identified as dangerous. Then, someone disregards the warning. And finally, the violator meets an unpleasant fate. The removal of natural words from the Oxford Junior Dictionary is hardly the only cautionary tale in the story of our climate crisis. Indeed, it's not even a small piece of the story. However, there was apparently fairly widespread discussion about the removal of these words when it occurred in 2015. Author Margaret Atwood led other writers and activists in writing a letter of concern. In the letter, Atwood and 27 others write, "Nature and culture have been linked from the beginnings of our history. For the first time ever, that link is in danger of becoming unraveled, to the detriment of society, culture, and the natural environment." Here is one beginning of a cautionary tale, I suppose. Authors writing saying, this is dangerous. Taking away the language, the exposure to these natural words removes a fundamental connecting link that is imperative to the future of our health, our society, and our world. The letter to the publishers continues. Will the removal of these words from the Oxford Junior Dictionary ruin lives? Probably not. But we believe the Oxford Junior Dictionaries should seek to help shape children's understanding of the world. Red alert, the writers are warning. They know the power of words in shaping our understanding of the world around us. When the words disappear, then what? Like the grandmother in the children's story, they are asking, who will remember? Who will be the keeper of the wild words? What happens if these words disappear? I grew up in the woods. My mother had a cowbell on our front porch that she would ring to call my sisters and I up from wherever we were. I spent hours with my little notebook down in the small meadow clearing where I wrote terrible poems. I'm not sure why I thought sitting in the woods necessitated writing rhyming couplets containing words like doth and thee. I guess I liked to imagine myself a 19th century poetess in a billowing gown sitting gracefully on the moors. It sure beat being an awkward 14-year-old in overalls, sticky in the summer humidity, sprawled in the dirt in the backwoods of Frederick, Maryland. But spending so much time in the woods, I knew the wild words. Damselfly and skink and crayfish. Poison ivy, copperhead, yellow jacket, blackberry, skunk cabbage, honeysuckle. More than that, I developed a feel of the world that became embodied. Just as we all have rituals to celebrate the passage of time and the turn of the year, the earth gave me rituals that I still need. Hope of spring arrives when I see the first snowdrop. Autumn has a smell and a feel that lets me know she's here. In every place I've ever lived, I have 2 or 3 natural places I go to routinely because they help me know the passage of time. These places become holy, sacred spaces through my visits. They remind me of who I am and where I belong. Nature is where I know myself most fully. It feels like the place that is big enough to hold all that I am becoming, and all I have ever been. It is in nature that I feel known. I'm lucky to live in a place where I am walking distance from a wooded trail and a 5-minute drive from a river with rocks to scramble on. But even if you live in a place where large areas of wild space are not accessible, or even if nature is just not your thing, or even if walking and hiking is not something you like or not something accessible to you, nature is everywhere. It is the air we breathe and the trees around us. It's the spider that has been living outside my back door all summer. Nature is houseplants and sunsets and sunrises and clouds. Wherever you are, there is a piece of nature holding you, waiting for you to honor her. About a year ago, I read Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants by Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer. I'm listening to it again now because its wisdom is so deep and life-giving for me. I find myself hungry for its beauty. Part of what I find most beautiful and transformative about Dr. Kimmerer's work is the way she reminds the reader that we are in relationship with the earth. A member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation with a PhD in plant ecology, her combination of indigenous knowing, teaching, and wisdom with the science of plant ecology is an incredible marriage of love and science. She writes, "Knowing that you love the earth changes you, activates you to defend and protect and celebrate. But when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship from a one-way street into a sacred bond." When I think about the river down the road from my house or the huge old tree by the trail I like to hike, I feel that bond. Yet, until reading Braiding Sweetgrass, I had never thought about it in this way. The idea of that kinship, of mutuality and reciprocity in my relationship with nature, that is a wild word that has been lost to many of us in today's society. The story of losing that is perhaps the beginning of the cautionary tale of climate change. When did we lose that sacred bond? When did we lose the language of mutuality and relationship and reciprocity with nature? Or for those of us who are white and non-Indigenous, why did we never develop that understanding? What values have we held that have prevented such connection with the very thing that sustains us? Perhaps something about that lack of connection has led us to this place where we are now, where we are no longer living the beginnings of a cautionary tale. We are living in that third stage, the part where the protagonist didn't listen and is facing consequences. Like so much in our life and our world right now, it is easy to get overwhelmed. You could listen to me ramble about my love of natural spaces, and you could commit to teaching children to be keepers of wild words, but at the end of the day, it's hard to know what to do, isn't it? This Sunday, through a partnership with Interfaith Power and Light, clergy across the region are speaking with their faith communities in what they are calling climate in the pulpits. In faith communities around the area, clergy and lay leaders are lifting up the importance of voting as a sacred act in support of the beloved community, and particularly voting with our earth in mind. The Climate Change Action Committee at UUCA has so much more information they can offer about actions you can take, postcards you can send, and phone banking you can participate in. Several members of the Climate Change Action Committee will be around during coffee hour to answer questions you might have and to offer more information. As people of faith, we are called to be good stewards of the earth. As Unitarian Universalists, our seventh principle reminds us that we're connected, not just to each other, but to the natural world. In Braiding Sweetgrass, Dr. Kimmerer reminds us that part of being good stewards is remaining in right relationship with the earth and all her beings. She writes, "We need acts of restoration, not only for polluted waters and degraded lands, but also for our relationship to the world. We need to restore honor to the way we live, so that when we walk through the world, we don't have to avert our eyes with shame, so that we can hold our heads up high and receive the respectful acknowledgement of the rest of the earth's beings." Part of caring for the earth and beginning that restoration is to vote in socially conscious and informed ways. I believe voting is a spiritual act and is one action we can take to begin to individually restore our relationship with the earth. Yet, restoration and repair of any relationship takes time. Loving the world is a spiritual practice, and like most spiritual practices, it isn't always easy. Our Unitarian Universalist faith calls us to live our values, including our reverence for life and our respect for the interconnected web of which we are a part. So there's the passionate part, and I believe all of that. I feel it deeply in my core, truly. But here's the other truth. I'm tired, and I know you're tired too. We're tired because we're living in a pandemic. We're tired because online school and work and even worship is different and hard and sad. We're outraged at the injustice of rulings in Louisville surrounding the murder of Breonna Taylor. We're fearful about our futures and the future of our loved ones. We're tired because in ways large and small, in matters personal and political, our hearts are breaking. If I were listening to this sermon right now, I would be thinking, yes, but Laura, I cannot hold my grief and outrage about the climate crisis right now, too. Dr. Joanna Macy is an eco-philosopher and a scholar of Buddhism who writes and teaches about social change. In an episode of the On Being podcast, Krista Tippett interviewed Dr. Macy and asked her particularly how we move through the paralysis of grief and fear we feel in so many ways for ourselves and for the world. Dr. Macy urges us to be willing to sit with the feelings and let them move through us with the understanding that feelings of grief, discomfort, outrage, and fear don't stay unless we refuse to look at them. When we look at our pain for the world, Dr. Macy says, when we take it in our hands, when we can just be with it and keep breathing, then it turns. It turns to reveal its other face, and the other face of our pain for the world is our love for the world, our absolutely inseparable connectedness with all life. Easier said than done, and yet I believe this ability to hold our grief and outrage alongside our love is the only way we have made it thus far. We could not know the depth of our love without the grief, and we would never be able to withstand the grief without the love. It's okay for our hearts to be broken over the world, Dr. Macy says. What else is a heart for? Yet, even as I say these words, I hear myself thinking, Yes, but I'm tired. How do I hold this grief and outrage and love when really season 4 of The Good Place just dropped on Netflix, and that actually sounds a whole lot better than sitting and breathing with grief and outrage? And I think the answer to this is yes. Yes, I will definitely watch season 4 of The Good Place and probably also the newest season of The Great British Baking Show. But Dr. Macy reminds us that the main thing is that you're showing up, that you're here, and that you're finding ever more capacity to love this world because it will not be healed without that. That is what is going to unleash our intelligence and our ingenuity and our solidarity for the healing of the world. I love this idea. The main thing is that you're finding ever more capacity to love this world. Sometimes I find more capacity to love the world through being in nature. Feeling the sun on my face while I walk the dog is a moment of loving the world and this life that opens me to more capacity to love. Sometimes I find more capacity to love the world through reading about the realities of climate change and allowing my heart to break open. I always find more capacity to love the world through voting for candidates I know support my vision of the future. And sometimes I find more capacity through watching whatever newest thing just dropped on Netflix because I know that rest also increases my capacity to love the world. It's so easy to feel overwhelmed by the state of our country and our world. Of course we feel angry. Of course we feel fearful. Our job is not to save the world. I'm not charging you with going home to do all you can tomorrow for climate change. But maybe you make a list of wild words. Maybe you talk with someone from the Climate Change Action Committee during coffee hour. Maybe you write some postcards or do some phone banking. Maybe you create a spiritual practice of breathing on your front porch in the morning. Maybe you notice the subtle changes in the air as we continue to move into autumn. The relationship between self and the world is reciprocal, Dr. Kimmerer writes. As we work to heal the earth heals us. Perhaps you hold this sacred bond of mutuality in your heart as you move through your days, curious about how it might change you. Friends, there is so much here to break our hearts. Yet just on the other side of that breaking is the equally strong force of love. We are stronger, more powerful, and more creative than we have ever been taught to imagine. And so we allow our hearts, so full of grief and love for the world, to break open. In the breaking, we hold our love of the earth that sustains us and allow ourselves to be loved in return. In the breaking, we expand our capacity to love beyond what we knew was possible. What else is a heart for? Our words of benediction come from Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass. Even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair. Not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift. Go in peace.